count to 3. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
You have found Daniel Donato's Lost Highway.
That lost highway.
Welcome, y'all, to episode 40 of the Lost Highway podcast with Jerry Garcia strumming his way into our hearts with this nice version of Bertha, the official podcast of all things Cosmic Country. And I am Daniel Donato. Thank you guys for listening. You can go to extremes with impossible schemes. You can laugh when your dreams fall apart at the seams, and life gets more exciting with each passing day, and love is either in your heart or on its way. Don't you know that it's worth every treasure on earth to be young at heart? For as rich as you are, it's much better by far to be young at heart. My grandfather, who recently passed away this year, always sang Frank Sinatra songs. And they reverberate throughout my childhood memories. And that was a Frank Sinatra song that I was just reading to you guys. And it's indicative of the mission statement that I'm proclaiming to all of y'all, that I very much so am going to place importance on joy this upcoming year. I think joy is a thing that is being taken away from us and being negotiated out of our psyche by people saying we need to be more like them, that we need to aspire to have private jets, that we need to aspire to work 14-hour days at jobs that we really don't love. And I really think it's important that joy be at the center of all your operational being, because that will only derive positive goals. The people who work the hardest and work the longest and work the smartest are the people who are innately the most joyful, because you cannot survive very long by being a stressed and anxious and depressed person. I feel like for a couple years now, I've been missing something with my music, and I would practice 6 hours a day and I wouldn't find it. I would not play guitar for 2 weeks and I still wouldn't find it. And I think the thing is that I took the priority of joy out of my life, and I was just trying to focus on gaining followers, and I would lose followers one day and I'd be all depressed, and it's like, it's silly. And I haven't even done anything like to win a Grammy, so I shouldn't be this stressed and this in my own head, but it's because I haven't been focusing on the priority of joy. So with all your friends saying that they wish 2021 be better, congratulate them on their optimism, because I think that is real and it's strategically good to be optimistic. But do not expect that this year or this decade owes you shit, because it doesn't. The world literally owes you nothing. It's like a Western ideal. Just because we get to choose our own jobs and choose our own paths in life doesn't mean that anything is owed to us. This world owes you nothing. You owe it to yourself to demand that you be the best person that you can, and it strategically makes the most sense that you work extremely hard and that you also work on a spiritual level of being the most joyous person that you can be by flexing the muscles of humility, gratitude, empathy. And the things that I love are patience, persistence, and positivity. And on the days when I'm not feeling that, and then one of y'all messages me saying, y'all, that patience, persistence, positivity got me through this day. It reminds me that not every day is going to be good, but we can flex these muscles and we can get better in time. So I hope 2021's better. I really do. But the thing that you can really control and not get existentially dissatisfied with is the amount of effort and execution that you put into your actions, your words, and most importantly, your thoughts. That self-dialogue starts everything. That inner world is where it all comes from, y'all. Stay patient, stay persistent, stay positive. Buy one of these fly Cosmic Country hoodies. We're doing a special merchandise collab each month of the year this upcoming year. And I'm making a personal statement and promise to y'all that I am focusing on being a joyous, hardworking, determined, clear-minded individual this upcoming year. I'm not going to be successful every day at it, but I'm going to try to every single day. And so if you ever think that there's a day where you wake up and you can't do it, or you're in a pissed off mood, or some shit happened to you, remember that I am making this promise to you, and you can bring it right on back home to me, is that I think joy is where it's at. I think joy is a thing that makes things last 100+ years, and joy is a thing that keeps it all going. Y'all stay cosmic. My friend Trevor Larkin is one of the main reasons why I started the Lost Highway podcast, the official podcast of Cosmic Country. He is not only able to play an Alan Stone, he is not only able to run his own podcast and create his own content, and now he's releasing his own music. He's able also to interface with the world in a way that has levity and comedy behind it, and it's like really self-deprecating and intelligent the way that he does so. And he's just a phenomenal musician. I'm proud to call him a friend, and it was a real honor to talk with him while he's relaxing in Hawaii via Zoom. I hope y'all enjoy this cosmic conversation with Mr. Trevor Larkin.
I'm sort of.
You're in
I wonder
straight Hawaii mode right now.
Well, let me see if I can. Of course, having just said, let me see if I can turn this around. It's probably going to unplug everything, but let me just see.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
I love this.
Oh,
Okay,
wait,
let's go.
Wait, you can kind of see there's some blue sky,
Come on,
some palm trees.
there it is.
So I'm officially that douche right now, and I apologize.
So
to
where
everyone
in
involved.
Hawaii are you exactly?
Sorry, let me turn up. Okay, let me turn up the thing so I can hear you now.
Are you in Maui?
Oh, and I look tremendous. This is great. I'm glad there's a visual component to this.
All right.
So I am on. I'm on the Big Island of Hawaii right now in a
Yeah.
district called Kau, which is a very, very remote part of the Big Island. And my folks have a little place here now, which is great. So it's been kind of the family tradition for the past several years that we've congregated here during the holidays.
Oh, whoa, really?
Yeah, very, very grateful, very, very fortunate to have this place to be. In the past, it was always post-tour, so I'd just be spent and exhausted and just, a shell of myself.
Yeah.
And I'd come back here and just sort of, tan my pasty body. You and I have that in common. Kindred spirits already.
What do you got? You got that Russian descent? I have that Ashkenazi Jew Russian descent, and we're just eternally white people.
I am, so my parents are South African, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I think if you trace, my last name is Larkin. If you trace the lineage back far enough, I'm pretty sure it's Irish. So it's just good standard Caucasian-y stock, know. Yeah. So in years past, this has been just a wonderful, just a real blessing of a place to kind of just relax and recuperate. This year, obviously, things are different. I'm grateful that my parents are here now because, at the moment, there are 0 active COVID cases in this district. So it's incredibly safe.
Wow.
In order to, I was on the fence, like a lot of people during the holidays now, I was on the fence about traveling. But here to get here, you need a double negative COVID test. You need to test negative before leaving, and then they rapid test you again at the airport upon arrival.
Hawaii is extremely, they're extremely efficient with that. We were going to go to Hawaii. A friend of mine, Steve Bellamy, who is over at Kodak. And he always gives me these crazy calls. Like he'll call me on a Monday, be like, "What are you doing Friday?" Like, "Oh,
yeah."
He's like, "Well, I'm me and Tulsi Gabbard and Mark Zuckerberg are going to Vail, Colorado, and we're bringing 14 people. You want to come?" He did this thing to me about wanting to go to Maui, and there's like the 3rd most expensive hotel like in the nation or something's in Maui. Mm-hmm. We were going to go, and 17 people were going, something crazy like that. I went and got tested. I got tickets. We were supposed to be there literally actually starting yesterday. And man, it was something like 2 people at the hotel got COVID and the whole thing's canceled now.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah.
It is wild. And it's the same policy where we are at now, where, if someone in this, I don't even know what this is. I was going to say complex, but that sounds sort of culty and strange, but we'll run with that. Yeah. In this complex, if someone were to have COVID, I think that would impact everyone, all the permanent residents here. I think everyone would have to go into quarantine. It's just surreal times, man, which is why, again, like I was really on the fence even about making this trip, because so many people are just not in a position where they can travel and see family over the holidays. And it's sort of crushingly tragic, but I'm very, 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 very fortunate to be here, and to be able to bring music with me to kind of work on, and my little studio, and to just have that space and that freedom to kind of just sort of meditate and just be still and calm. This year. So how has this year been for you?
Man, I've had a really bad December so far, and it's kind of fogging up my perception of the year. But if you were to have asked me like in November how the year was going, I really think it was a great year. But I'm kind of crippled by this by this perspective, like as of like maybe the past week, that always creeps up on me. And I only know that it comes into my mind once I'm in the thick of it. But like the onset of this shitty perspective is very slow, and it happens like once every 2 quarters. So it's like a semi-annual thing.
Yeah.
And it's just this perspective of like me seeing all the things I should have done this year that I didn't get a chance to do. And it's really just like numbers based things. I didn't make this much money, or I didn't gain this many fans, or silly things like that. But the year was honestly really great. And there was a forced proximity to a more still train of thought that I really love. And that I'm still taking that with me now.
Yeah.
Something I picked up this year was the concept of waking up at the same time every day. Like that's a really great thing, and it kind of gives you this idea where you can construct like the most critical hours of your day, maybe those first 2-3 hours, to be really efficient and positive. That's something touring does not give me the ability to do, like, quite ever.
No.
Yeah.
No. And that's something, which has been my life for the past 10 years, basically nonstop.
Damn, sir, 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, with the Alan Stone Band, it's basically been write, record, tour since 2011.
Like, what was y'all's approach? Like, what was your site? Like, would you guys meet at the beginning of the year and be like, okay, so we're going to do this in March, and we're going to do this in January, and then we're going to release in October? And was it a pretty constructed deal like that, or was it so not that?
The diplomatic and evasive answer to that question is yes and no.
Right.
I think with a lot of bands, especially, because we all knew each other before it was a thing,
Right.
So I think any time that there's a real depth of chemistry and just a real connection as people, I think the real magic or the real alchemy happens when you're actually in the same room together and just kind of hashing things out, whether it be music, whether it be strategy, whether it just be interpersonal. Hey, like, where's your heart? How's your spirit? Who's pissed off at who's in love with what?
Right.
There certain groups or certain people are able to address those issues in different ways. But with that camp, all of the best progress that we've made has always just been in the room together. So that obviously is something that has been, so for us, being on tour is really sort of a therapy. I mean, sure, it's very difficult at times, but it is also just a built-in time where we're all in the bus together and, breaking bread and just talking about, and that's the thing with that world. It's more so just kind of talking about life and talking about just other things. And those other things tend to coalesce around the music as opposed to sitting down and going like, okay, well, who's got an idea? It rarely happens that way. It's usually a much more kind of intuitive and kind of spur of the moment thing. So times like this, and we also kind of need that because we're all very different people.
Right.
We were all living in Seattle at the time when things started, but we now all live in different cities, and we all are, as I say, very different people, very different temperaments and personality types. We lead very different lives, and how it's always been is, we all kind of scatter at the end of a thing, whether it's a session or a tour, and lead said different lives very happily, and that's sort of what we've done now. But certainly this distance, I mean, we've had, I'm in touch with other guys in the band quite a bit, like they're playing on a lot of these new tunes of mine, and we collaborate on different projects together and help produce for other people. We kind of have our own little miniature version of the Wrecking Crew that we throw out there. And then Al and I will chat here and there. But like I say, we all have very different lives and very different sort of energies. So it's been a challenge this year, kind of staying connected. But to answer your original question, is there a big strategy meeting? Is there a grand plan? Our thing up until now has always just been, it was very much like the Field of Dreams thing. If you build it, they will come. Oh. We just started touring and we didn't know anything. And when I say we didn't know anything, I mean, we literally knew nothing.
What is so the level of knowing nothing in 2011 is way different than the level of knowing nothing in 2020. So like, what's that difference, do you think? Like,
well, not only is that statement true, but compound that with a group of people who just in general, kind of know nothing.
Same here.
and then date that a decade. Date that to a time when YouTube had only been around for 5 years or whatever.
Have you heard of YouTube?
I know, right? It's a strange Martian technology.
2011, I remember that was like the only guitar video on YouTube was like Marty Schwartz.
It was a time. It was a time. No, yeah. So our approach was very accidental and very analog, which I know for me at that time was just so important for me to experience because I have, especially at that time and in previous years, I could be characterized as a little self-serious,
Man.
And wow. And it was, and I had been, sort of very meticulous and very particular and I had had success doing other things, but it was so valuable for me to just be in a project. Cause at that time, I had a band in Seattle that, we had come close to signing we were not a good band. Let me clarify. It was like a power trio rock thing and I was singing and writing the tunes and stuff and it was great. And we almost signed a deal, but thank God we didn't because we stunk and we were not ready for that kind of thing. But still, I was pretty broken up by that. And the chance to play with these guys came up and I was, oh, well, this is perfect. I can play with my friends. They're all great musicians and I don't have to be the center of attention. I was not ready for that. And it was really just so like, do you know the Muppet Band, the Electric Mayhem? Dr. Teeth and all these guys, Ralph on piano, Gonzo on drums, or not Animal on drums, and then Gonzo has always just been the best. Yeah. So that is exactly what we were and what I think the thing still is to this day. It's just, it doesn't make a goddamn lick of sense.
Right.
And we just sort of piled in a shitty van and just sort of bumbled around. And for someone like me, who at the time was like very much sort of iron your underpants kind of guy, Yeah. It was really great therapy to just be like, this should not work. This should not work at all. And yet it is somehow working. And it was working in a way, we go to San Luis Obispo and play to the security guard and the bartender. And then we go back again and there'd be 10 people. And we go back again and there'd be 50 people. And then, oh my God, we played the Conan O'Brien show in 2011. And if you go on YouTube and if you watch that performance, we are the greenest human beings. It's tremendous. I was wearing a wrinkled, I've been wearing it for like 2 weeks, Iron Maiden shirt that I was forbade to go out on stage wearing this shirt. The guy, the press guy who was with us, like gave me his even more wretched overcoat to wear. Oh, because it's just like, you can't wear this garbage. Oh. So I just put an additional layer of garbage on top of my garbage and it's great. I'm like tapping my foot in between. It's tremendous. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Alan was going through his sweater phase. It was a great time, and it's some, and I think, I've learned so many lessons from that world, but I think specifically in this context, just that idea that one of the great blessings that world has afforded me is it was a space where I could just make mistakes. See, like you are a person who, at least, and I'm sure internally for you, maybe you would disagree, but as someone who is a friend of yours and a fan of yours, you are someone who has had a really good, you've been hitting ground rule doubles for a long time. You know what I mean? Like at an early age, you've cultivated a real strong identity as an artist. And you're really consistent and really confident within that, which I think is wonderful. It took me a really long time to develop that. That's always been my trajectory. I've been much more of a slow burn type of dude.
Man, I think I'm a slow burn too.
Well, it's a beautiful energy I've come to realize, and it is something that I think a lot of us are. There's something sort of insidious in our business, which I'm sure you've experienced too, is we're sort of conditioned to focus on things we are perceived to be lacking. And an element of that is certain people that maybe are not the best influences in our lives. There's an element of control there and manipulation. Right. There's an element of people just needing to have a seat at the table and feeling justified in the conversation. I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah. And, just part of it, I'm sure, is also just good old fashioned human nature. You feel a little bit better about yourself, kind of inserting yourself in a scenario in that way. But anyway, but for me with the Al Stone thing, I needed a lot of space to just learn how to do this thing, to learn how to really, just be comfortable on stage in this context with these guys, to learn how to dress, to learn how to be, because I had been a good musician or a good player or a good songwriter or whatever for a long time. But in terms of connecting the dots of how to be a good professional,
right.
I did, it's not that I didn't know how to do that. It's just, It was such a luxury to all of a sudden find yourself in a project where, like 2012, we were on the road for 315 days.
That's fucking awesome, though. That's insane.
It was great. And that's almost all the days.
That's 50 days short.
It's funny to look back at those times and just see like how we were all dressing and how we were all just sort of behaving. And it's tremendous, that world grew quickly. But it still afforded all of us that luxury of being sort of glorious, spectacularly sort of imperfect, which is something that as I say, like I certainly needed that.
Wow.
Only now do I really feel, I would say, it's a constant evolution, but only now would I say do I sort of feel properly confident in my own skin. But back in those days, it was just so great. And also just the way that the band at that time performed, because prior to that, I was doing, living in Seattle, I was doing freelance gigs with the symphony and the ballet and the opera and wearing the bow tie and all that.
Right.
And I was doing, recording sessions for like, a lot of film work would come up from LA to sort of get around the unions, would come up to Seattle. So I would do that stuff. And then I was playing in bands and stuff too, but like a lot of it was very, formal, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of work. But then this band, Alan was just screaming his head off. The drummer was just super, just visceral and just like, just powerful. And it was very, very open and just exposed.
Right.
Very, very human.
Right.
And that was really important for me to experience, just both on, just a human level. And it's really informed my playing and my musicality as well. Just like choices I've made as a guitar player, choices that I've made as a contributor to an ensemble and stuff like that. So it's been such a wonderful thing. And
right.
It's meant a lot to a lot of people. And it sort of has grown the right way. And, now we're all at this sort of surreal crossroads where we don't really know what is coming around the bend.
Is that because that's obviously because of a lot of influences, right? But you got to think that one of them is the inevitable, seems to be like this. I'm noticing at 25, where I look at life very much in analogous archetypes. So it's just like, definitely this is more of like a pool analogy here. So I think there's like this, there's almost like this transcendent force that's just constantly leading you into this deeper end. And there's these poles, or there's these markers that we pass in our life, right? So there's one where, unless you're Dave Ramsey, you get a credit card. Unless you're 16, you start driving, right? You're, 20 to sometime in your mid 30s, you meet someone and you get married and you have a child, or, you know what I mean? Maybe some people go to college, they get in a lot of debt, they do those things. And it's interesting to see how music is really affected by these inevitable life scenes that happen in our lives. And right. So Alan recently just had a child, right?
Right.
So I'm assuming like the inevitable maturation and rising levels of responsibility you guys have in your lives, and the fact that you have more of those experiences that happen, that makes you even more different people, let alone like on an Enneagram level, you guys are probably already innately different, but talk about the assets of experience that you guys are now accumulating and responsibilities. Now you're differing even more. How does the nucleus of Alan Stone keep rolling forward? And that's kind of what you're talking about. What do you think some of those forces are?
Well, that's a good question. And you're forcing me to think about stuff as I'm in Island Vibes mode, which I appreciate.
You're in Jimmy Buffett mode. You're literally, I can feel the fucking margarita salt through this SM.
Just having a cheeseburger in paradise over here.
That's written about a diner here in Nashville, Rotier's Diner.
I did not know that. Is that right?
Rotier's, I don't know if it's true, but people have told me that it is. And so, and what people say now is true. So Rotier's Diner is apparently that's what it's all about. I don't know if that's.
Yeah. No, well, that's good information. When I'm back in town, I will go. I will go, and I will like be adorned in various like sort of like loud floral bullshit, and it'll be great. You know,
like, sir, it is 27 degrees outside. What in the fuck are you wearing?
It's like, hey,
Bahama sandals for?
I'm just living, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, don't judge me.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's a very good question.
Right on.
I think, I know for me,
because the music was that's the thing. Like, I can always see when bands stop, like, because there's no sales. Like, my father's a businessman, so I always have a business, like a layer of fascia that's over my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And you guys obviously have sales, like you sell out shows and you have fans, right? I've been in several bands that I could, when I was touring with them, we go to Urbana, Illinois, there'd be 200 people, then we go back and there's 100, right? And so I could see why now in 2020, they say, fuck it, no more. Yeah. But it's interesting to see, you guys are talking about there's this evolution here. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's a project that has life is what I'm saying, right? Yeah, no, I think so. And that world has been built up in such a way that, obviously, when it's safe to do so, that world can kind of get out and play shows and tour. Sort of, whether there's a new record, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter.
You can kind of go out and play shows and do well. Yeah. So that's very fortunate.
Yeah, man, it's great.
Yeah, but we are, but that said, we are very different people and some people have come and gone and we are, a little bit older and wiser and all the things that kind of go along with it. And I think, in the earlier days, one of the great gifts of the band's success is it's really emboldened all of us, Alan included, to kind of branch out and explore different things, and do different, explore different creative outlets. And we're all really excited to be doing that. I'm releasing music of my own again, and Swati has a great band, and so there's a lot of really special things going on.
Hira, how do you pronounce it? Is it Hira-eth or Hira-eth?
Oh, yeah. So that is up to debate. The pronunciation I have been told is Ireth.
Ireth. And so I love it, man. I love it.
Thanks. No, that's
it. To me out of the blue, and it was you texted me right when I was exercising, so I pressed it right on, and I love it, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a very different type of song for me to do. Well, okay. So we can talk about. Do you want the Alan Stone answer or that answer first?
I want to go on the Alan Stone answer, and then let's get into the. Okay. Next. Yes.
Yeah. I think for me, God, I mean, I have changed so much as a person over these past 10 years, and wow. What I'm sort of experiencing now. So, when the opportunity to play with Alan came about, I was as I mentioned, kind of at a crossroads. I'd had a band that had just broken up that I thought was going to break through. I had good work in Seattle, and I had a lovely girlfriend and a nice apartment and all those things. And I was just like, okay, well, this is it, I guess. Like, this is okay.
Wow.
But then the opportunity to play with these guys comes up at a time where I was sort of like, well, I guess I just sort of going down this road. But then this other opportunity came up and I jumped on it. And now it has become this thing that's become, and I kind of feel now I'm at another crossroads again, where this, the Alan Stone thing has reached the culmination of a chapter, not in terms of the thing stopping or anything like that, but just in terms of that moment where you sort of look at yourself in the proverbial mirror and go, who am I? And where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? How do I want to express myself?
Yeah.
And I'm at that point again, very similar to where I was 10, 11 years ago, where, I just sort of open to opportunity. Like the Alan Stone band is really special and very much a thing. And I think will always play a role in all of our lives. But all of us are so much more open now to doing other things and to just sort of channel, I guess, like kind of channel a lot of the stuff that we've learned along the way. You know, I think that that's a real mistake that bands with success and some longevity make, is they just sort of, they keep coming back to the same place over and over again. And they don't recognize when it's time to have that conversation, or when it's time to take a break, or when it's time to release other music. And I think critically too, you know, especially if you're dealing with a situation where it's not your name on the marquee, it can be difficult sometimes, especially if you are, you know, like a little bit more of, I guess, an alpha type, and are inclined to sort of share your own art, or, you know, have conversations like we're having now, and like these kind of things.
Right.
It can, you know, I feel like it's so important to get these other vehicles for expression out into the world, so that you can come back. You know, being in a band is very much a team sport, right? So you can come back to the flagship restaurant, or you can come back to the band and know what your job in that band is to do. And you feel like really satiated and very happy for having done this other stuff. So that's why it's critical, I feel like, for everyone to branch out and do other things, you know?
Man, there is a real, I notice it in Nashville a lot, and I've never really innately understood it. And now I'm getting to the place to where I'm trying to force more empathy into how I talk to myself. It's allowed me to have empathy for other people. I recently took a personality test, and my politeness level was 0 out of 100, which is
0.
Everyone who meets me, but
I don't know.
People
you're a very polite young man. I don't know where that 0 comes from.
I really am an asshole on certain levels, and it's like, it's real, man. So the thing that I've been really practicing empathy, like several times an hour. I'm reminding myself. And I think I've noticed having this empathy. I've noticed within the music industry, there is because that's the only domain of expertise I've really participated in with any good amount of contention, time wise. And so there's a real feast or famine definitive line. And most people go to the famine side. Like, I have to be this identity that I saw someone else fulfill. So I have to do that to be successful. And I can only do that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, there's a concept in business that's known as verticality. Like, like Coke can't just like add stevia to every bottle of regular Coke. Like, it would be really fucked up and no one would buy it anymore. So you do have to stay vertical to some degree, but it's a feast in this world. Like, we live in an expanding universe that is growing and swirling in many directions exponentially at thousands of miles an hour. And there's always change. And so why can't we feel free and find value in exposing those opportunities of change and fulfilling them? Right? Like you did with your podcast, like you did with your recent release of music. And why can't everyone else in Allen Stone do that? Alan did, right? Went and did the karaoke tour, which is cool. It's like, why can't we do all these avenues? And it's like, I feel like the era of music that we're coming from, that YouTube driven success, organic, independent of really needing major marketing from labels, that shows that you can really just curate a fan base based off like almost your vibrational center of who you are as a collective and as you are as individuals. And that'll always resonate with people. Right. Yeah. And it's like, so I think it's a beautiful thing, man, that you're doing a thing. And I just wanted to kind of mention, like, it's really cool that at your age and everyone else around you as well, that you guys are arriving to kind of the same notion that I'm getting on here, where it's really a feast out here. Like, you can do Allen Stone, you can do several other projects, you can juggle many balls at the same time and be successful.
Right. No, I agree. And within that, I think it's important also to appreciate, and I feel like this kind of surreal time we're in can be really conducive towards this in our more philosophical moments. You know, this is like a very difficult time for so many people, but I feel like I know for me, I've been really along the lines of what you're talking about. I've been really paying attention to sort of the intention and the reason why I am doing a thing, especially when there are so many different ways you can express yourself in so many different outlets. You know, that on the one hand, as you say, there's an abundance there, and that can be, you know, that certainly is exciting. But I also feel like in a world that is sort of driven by metrics and various analytics and how many views and how many listens and how many everything, you know, our sense of self and our sense of real identity is really wrapped up in some sort of inherently kind of unhealthy or sort of fucked up stuff. And so for me, what I'm trying to focus on, you know, you mentioned like the podcast earlier, that show is on, you know, I had that going on. I had a daily email newsletter that I'd written for a couple of years that had a great audience. But those two things are kind of on hold right now because I realized that the intention behind those things was a bit dysfunctional. I think one thing that I'm trying to focus on, and I think hopefully a great many people are trying to focus on now during these times is what we are doing, sort of, instilling within us like a real sense of pride, of personal pride, of, having felt better to have contributed this, for yourself and for the universe, or however you want to think about it. Something that you're sort of excited to get out of bed and jump into, that has nothing to do with spins, that has nothing to do with views. Because
So that's where your dysfunctional intention. So you're talking about.
I sort of, it was,
right.
Yeah, I think I was seeking probably a little bit too much external validation through those other outlets.
Yeah.
And then also, no, I mean, to be honest, I was also a little bit intimidated about deep diving into my own music again, because I had done it in earnest before and it had not been particularly successful, not because it was bad, but just because, who knows how or why some songs get heard, who really knows why the Alan Stone thing took off the way that it did. There's so much of it that is out of our control, which is why I think it's so important to focus on things about which you are proud and about which really you feel, really capture the essence of kind of who you are as an artist, and that, back to the abundance thing, we are in the sort of epicenter right now of the 15-second shred on Instagram and do this and do that and do the other thing. Hey, no, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's real.
One of the reasons why your social media presence is successful and really compelling is because it is authentic.
Right.
I really get a sense that I am getting, a real genuine insight into who you are through the things that you choose to share.
Yeah.
If that is not true, then, someone shouldn't do the thing, even if someone else is doing the thing. There are plenty of white guys playing funk on the internet. You know what I mean? I am not feeling compelled to contribute to that continuum. But what I'm starting to do now, and even in the height of, my shred days, or the height of the Alan Stone thing, if you had asked me what I most identify as, it would be as what I'm doing now, as a songwriter and an artist, sort of sharing my own art. Not so much a guitar player in someone else's band, not so much like a chops guy or whatever. And so now I feel like after 10 years of playing in a successful band, I feel like only now have I really found a voice that I feel like is really genuine to who I am, that I'm excited to share. So that's exciting for me,
It's exciting for me
and it immediately sort of contextualizes a lot of the stuff that I think can really be anxiety inducing for a lot of people, like the social media stuff, or how you choose to, even my sending Earaith to you, this is a gentle, tune where I'm not even singing the lead vocal. I'm singing 64 background vocals, and it's not a musician-y song.
Right.
And it's, but it's who I am. And that, I think, going back to that, to really focus on stuff about which you're really proud, that has been such a huge development for me this year, that has taken several years prior to really build up, to sort of full strength, So that is a rambling answer to a question of yours that I'm sure was very nice, that I have somehow either evaded or have maybe answered somewhat.
Well, I love ramblers, man. I really love. I was born rambling. I really was. Since I was, honestly, every report card up until when we stopped having report cards had the same problem, which was Daniel talks too much and he thinks he's the boss.
Yeah.
And, it's just I really love connecting with people who can be very transparent with their curiosity and their train of thoughts. Because, man, if you think about it, when you're talking to yourself and you're thinking through these issues, you're not even talking in complete sentences, in your own mind. So it's really helpful to be able to talk to people who are on the same vibrational level as you are. Right. Yeah. And it's that really is what this whole simulation of life is about. It's communicating these ideas, because a lot of times we're going through the same issues. It's just that the pronouns and the geographic location might vary from person A to person B, but they're similar. Yes.
No, it's very true. And you were talking about empathy earlier. I think hopefully that's something that we're all taking away from these crazy times, is that everyone is going through something.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how much sort of quote unquote success you've had, however arbitrary that might be. It doesn't matter your relationship status. It doesn't, everyone is going through something really heavy right now. And this is especially for those of us who are inclined to do this type of personal work, and be fortunate enough to be able to kind of weather this storm in relative safety. I'm really excited by this opportunity to kind of dig a little bit deeper and explore these different kind of connections, which is why I'm excited to be on your show. It's really fun to have these type of conversations,
Yeah, man, really.
And also to just share kind of just core human stuff, that it's okay to be imperfect, that it's okay to not really know what's going on. It's okay to be scared. And I think that's another great thing. Well, yeah, it sounds so strange to say great thing about these times, but we can all explore that energy if we choose to. This sort of this uncertainty and this vulnerability around where we're coming from. And there's a lot of great stuff that can be mined from that. Hopefully this guy doesn't start mowing. So if you hear lawnmower in the background, we might. That's okay. I'll yell loud.
As long as it's a John Deere, I'm happy. As long as it's a well-made American machine.
It is a John Deere, and my dad used to own a John Deere dealership in my hometown of Walla Walla, Washington.
Ooh,
so there you go.
Okay, what native tribe was in Walla Walla?
To my shame, I don't know.
That's
off
all
the
good.
top of my head. I do know that Walla Walla means land of many waters, because there's the Snake River and the Columbia River. That converges right around there. It's right around. I'm sure all of your listeners know exactly where Walla Walla, Washington is, but it's right on that Oregon-Idaho border, like right in the southeastern corner of the state. And then Alan actually grew up in a town called Chewelah, Washington, which is about 3 or so hours like due north of Walla Walla. So 2 very small rural Eastern Washingtonian places that are responsible for 2 weirdos.
Really weird and oddly relevant to what this generation needed musically. Like a perfect inflection of I find that as musicians now, I don't know, I don't have the context of having been alive in the 60s and 70s, but we did a record with Robin Ford, produced a record of that.
Yeah.
And whenever we get together, I'm asking him what was it like that being at Fillmore West, watching Cream or watching Hendrix front row.
Yeah, wow.
And it was just there wasn't much. Things were obvious, you could see where the influence was coming from, but the idea of things being derivative were outweighed by the actuality of the innovation that was happening.
Yeah.
The amount of innovation that's happening now, I feel, is outweighed by how we're kind of pastiche derivative. But I find that to be cool. If I can listen to an artist and tell who they like, and who they were fucking with while they're growing up and who they're listening to. That's a cool thing. And that was the thing that's really apparent in your guys' group, is you can really hear the influences, and it's very obvious.
You can, and it was especially, even just for me, prior to joining that group, I had never really played soul music. Right. I hadn't really even listened to much soul music. I had listened to the greatest hits and stuff.
Sure.
But I really sort of I basically knew nothing, And then I found myself in a group with guys where that had been what they had grown up with, and they had sort of a deep attachment to this music, and
and you didn't have that same emotional
not because
connection.
I didn't like it, but just because I think my favorite stuff early on was all the metal and hardcore stuff, and
which geographically makes more sense for you to be into that.
I don't know. It was the music that I had really discovered on my own. It was the first music that I discovered on my own. So there was a real kind of sense of ownership of that stuff,
Curiosity.
And I was a real angry teenager, which I feel is a good thing. I encourage any teenagers listening to this to just be angry. It doesn't matter what, just be annoyed. And so it was a great, because for me, I was a big sports guy. I still am a big sports guy, but more so a sports fan now. But I was a big sports guy. And then around 15, 16, I had an injury and kind of transitioned into guitar playing, basically. So it was a great outlet for me to just continue. I couldn't just beat the Christ out of someone on the football field. So this was but I could just play along to Pantera and Metallica and
fuck yeah,
Anthrax and fucking Deicide and Death and all these tremendous bands,
Dimebag Darrell, holy shit. Holy shit, man. Dimebag Darrell. We don't talk about Dimebag enough. I don't ever see Dimebag Darrell. The Instagram covers. For every 1,000 slow dancing in a burning rooms, I get one Cowboys from Hell. for every 1,000.
Well, see, now you now have something new to evangelize on your show now, because those records are really, really tremendous. Oh, wait, here's the guy with the thing. Here's the guy with the thing. Let's see. Oh, no, it's okay. No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Good. Look at that. It worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, I mean, like that, there was just so much like real power and intention. And I actually feel like a lot of soul in that music, because there's nothing contrived about it, and that was something that I think playing with the Al Stone group really taught me as well. I mean, there's soul as a genre, obviously, but then all good music has soul. It might kind of feel and sound a little bit different,
Of course.
But again, like what was really cool for me with that band is because we didn't know what we were doing. And we still don't know what we were doing. The fact that I didn't really have a super refined soul vocabulary was okay, because I was a good musician and I could just kind of listen and play stuff. Like I'm a big Andy Summers fan, a big fan of the Police. And that was an aesthetic that has kind of become sort of. I guess if I have a sound as a guitar player, which I'm not sure that I do, that would be it. Is this sort of like, add nines to everything and 11s.
Well, I could have sworn I just saw you play a B add 9 with your hand.
Oh, I know. It's if it doesn't have a 9 in it, it's not a chord.
Yeah.
No, because like what I found with that band is, it's that Miles Davis thing. Like when the band is playing fast, you play slow. When the band is playing slow, you play fast.
What's that vibe? How so?
Well, I found like in the Alan Stone thing, especially in the earlier days of the group, the drummer was very, very active on the set, rolling all over the toms, a lot of mid-range. Alan is, really going for it. And he's also hacking away at the acoustic or the electric or whatever. And then the keyboard player is also very busy. It all sounds great. Yeah. But there was just a lot of real estate being covered. And in the early tours, I was just like, Christ, like, what do I even play in this band? Because I'm coming from, the role of the guitar in rock music is way different than the role of the guitar in that world. The guitar in rock music, it's forward, it's loud, the tune is kind of built around, it's guitars, But in soul music, the job is just the opposite. It's to really add those colors and those little moments, Right. And what I found, it was, if I started to kind of hack away at stuff, if I started to kind of white guy blues it in there, it just got muddy, and all the Strat and a hat kind of playing, it just kind of got muddy and lost in that thing.
It's funny.
And so what I found is if I could occupy, really like play with minimal effects, and just float, hit that minor 11 chord over the top of the groove, and just let it hang and let it float over the top, and let the other guys fill in that kind of rhythmic stuff and that chatter and that bounce. All of a sudden, the guitar really, because I was always pretty fastidious about listening back to board mixes or listening back to like Instagram clips of the shows or whatever.
While ironing your underwear in a Days Inn hotel room in Boise, Idaho, you're listening back to the show. Literally my life for years. Yeah. Literally, yes. No, I'm aware. I'm the same.
Yeah. And so it was cool. I realized that I could kind of take a lot, because I'm a big fan of chords. I'm a big fan of like close voicings and extended shapes. I have sort of long, spindly fingers, and it's always just kind of, I've been drawn to that type of almost pianistic kind of vibe.
Philip Glass meets guitar. Right.
Sure. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's funny that you use Philip Glass as a reference. Like that was a huge influence for me on a lot of approach to actually, a lot of the stuff off of Radius and even building balance.
Oh, wow.
Going out and playing shows, because there's, again, like providing texture. You can provide texture by fluttering over the top. You can provide texture by, adding, kind of slidey add 9 stuff. You can add texture doing anything, or you can add, you can just kind of also just repetitive extended arpeggio shapes, kind of ghosting and dancing around. And I really found that was a super effective kind of aesthetic within that group. And again, like in a soul band, you don't really hear anyone doing that kind of stuff, which is great. And then I always made a point to steal a riff or a concept from like some, like there was a tune in particular off of Radius, a song called Love, that in the verse, I stole the arpeggio pattern from Limelight by Rush, which is a great song. And I applied that to the tune, And, the same voices, the same everything. And it just made me so happy. And it was always the thing. Another favorite thing of mine to do is, because like chances are, the first, how the Alan Stone shows typically work is the first 5 or 6 rows are just super fans and they're following Alan, and they're tremendous people and they're following Alan wherever he goes on stage. And then stage left is where myself and Swati are, and that's where the keyboard and guitar nerds are. And they are staring at us, but mostly staring at Swati, because I don't know how much I give to guitar nerds, honestly. I really don't. But that's where they are. And then the drummer is stage right, and then the bass is there. And then so that's all the drum nerds and bass nerds are on that side. And there's a lot of great playing going on. And, so I'd throw in like a Rush thing, or I'd throw in like a Zakk Wylde, like Ozzy lick or something like that. Yeah. And it would work. And I'd look out at the audience. I even threw like, I would throw in like a Dream Theater thing, like, really, really going for it. And, they, maybe they didn't land as well as I think they landed, but I thought they landed pretty well. No, but it was cool to just, you watch the audience and like they don't know that music, but then you look over at the house guys and the crew guys and they're just like, fuck yeah, Yeah, and that was always something that I tried to do, especially early on, like, especially when we would be going to places for the first time back in the day. Like I remember our first European tour, we played this small club in Dublin, Ireland. And it was, like a lot of small clubs. It's a rock place. It's like a metal joint. It's dingy and it's fucked up and it stinks. And I love it, And I noticed that one of the house guys. Oh, here the thing is going by now. The attractor. There it is. It's on the move, and it is almost out of earshot, and it's gone. Okay, this is great. Anyway, great. Yeah. So yeah, I noticed that one of the house guys had a Deicide tattoo. So Deicide is this amazing death metal band. I'm sure all of your Cosmic Country fans are intimately familiar with Deicide. Right. But this guy had a deal, and we were this sort of frilly frou-frou soul band from the US, and they were, pretty openly dismissive of us, as they should have been, Yeah. But then I noticed this guy's Deicide tattoo as he was pitting the stage. And so like during soundcheck, I played some Deicide riffs. Right. And immediately he's just like, what the fuck is going, what? And from that moment, all of a sudden the entire vibe changed, and everyone was just so kind and welcoming. And then, then we played, and they were really kind of taken aback, I think, by the musicianship and like the exuberance of the crowd and the whole thing. So that's something that I've always tried to do, is to just kind of dish out those Easter eggs for the people who actually work for a living, especially the Irish, right? My God, the culture differentiation when going over into Europe and exploring the various cultures that go over there, to people who tour there for the first time, myself included. Like I'm very much so a tourist, in contrast to my friends such as yourself and Joe Bonamassa, Tyler Bryant, other people have been on this podcast, John Osborne, like who have spent several tours in Europe and spent a lot of time. It's crazy to me to see, of course, the difference in cultures in regards to how close they are in proximity to each other. Like even just within Germany, going to the Netherlands, it's like you're getting a lot of dynamic there. But it's funny to see just how old and ingrained in our brainstem music is. And it works across the entire race of humanity. It really does. That's crazy. Such a profound energy. And I'm glad that you bring that up, because I feel like there is also a tendency, maybe in part, to kind of like find your lane and find an audience. Is that there is I belong to this clique, or this is the genre, this is the thing. Right. And, one of the great, again, like real gifts of the Alan Stone project is it became a global band. I think soul music is a real great ambassador for positivity and for kind of people, being inclined to sort of bring the best versions of themselves to the show. And that again, for me, kind of coming from a self-serious kind of shoegazy place prior to joining that band, to just experience shows that were pure joy, just pure joy, no agenda, just happiness and just dancing and just love. And, it was such an important thing for me to see, it wasn't about note perfection. It wasn't about, it was just about being in that room with people. And it really changed me, it really changed me profoundly, like really fundamentally, it changed me. And so, being able to travel all over the world and play that music, it is so wonderful to see. It doesn't matter whether you're playing a show in New Zealand or whether you're playing in Ireland or whether you're playing in the United Arab Emirates or, all of these kind of crazy little places we've been fortunate enough to play, the reaction is very similar. People are tied into this kind of universal joy, this sort of freedom to express yourself in a really authentic way. A lot of different genres of music can bring that out, but there's something about soul music that is just, and also just the amount of people we've met and the amount of incredible conversations we've had, just because people, again, there's something about that music that really unlocks this sort of potential, or you're inclined to sort of be the best version of yourself and be just very open. And so many wonderful just like hangs and conversations after the show, and so many friends, like lifelong friends made, and so many great people in the industry too. I feel like the industry can get a bum rap sometimes. But really sure. And we all have experienced the people you don't want to work with in the business.
Sure.
But the beautiful thing about music that comes with a real depth and purity of intention is that the real sort of shitty people are not drawn to that music. They're not drawn to that energy. They're drawn to something that they can exploit. They're drawn to something that they can manipulate. And if there's that kind of purity, and if there's that kind of intention behind the art, and manifested through the people on stage and the people in the audience, then the right business people as well are drawn to that. And that was a really valuable lesson for me to learn too, because again, at the time of that band starting, I had been working with people who shall remain nameless that were not that great. And it was really wonderful for me to see that the art and the intention behind the art can steer the ship in every way imaginable. And at that point, it's not about any sort of metric. It's not about any number of Spotify anythings. It's just about the sort of courage to be vulnerable in that way and to invite people in. And so all of us have learned that lesson tenfold and are really applying that now into our own art and our own sort of independent outlets for expression and stuff now.
Man, the courage of vulnerability. So it's just like, right? So whenever we go play a show, I make a point in my mind to say that this is a celebration, not a presentation, right? Because it's really, and I hate rhyming like that, but it's really true because it reminds you, it's the idea of your concept of whatever it is that's accurate is so driven within your own ego that no one gives a fuck. Like no one cares if you hit the wrong, you hit the wrong chord. Like no one cares. Like if you go to stop on the pedals, like they don't even think to care. So you got to think of how do you actually bring value and how do you make that abstract thing happen? How do you make that joy happen? And you got to see that happen across many different cultures of humanity. What do you think it is? Like, I think a lot of it's tempo. Like, I think a lot of it's like the dynamic in which you guys play. Like you guys play. Like you're not there just like radio tour acoustic, like two acoustic guitars, one vocalist. Yeah. Like playing up there. So what do you think it is? Like if you were to have to isolate and bullet point some of those variables, like what do you think it is that creates that joy? Like I went and sat in with Corey Wong the other day at this badass club here in Nashville called Flamingo. Have you played there?
No, I've been told about, obviously prior to all of this happening, there was like a soul night there or like a funk night that
it's called The Invite.
That I had been, that I had been invited out to check out, but I had never, just because of scheduling, I'd never been able to check it out. But it's cool. It's
we gotta go. Yeah, man, we gotta go. And cool. I went there the other night with my girlfriend and my friends in my band, and Corey was there. And I hadn't met him before, but we'd been talking on Instagram a couple of times, and he was like, "Get up and play." And I kind of forced my way in there to ask if I could play because
that's all right. Yeah. It's all right.
And he's like, "Well," I get up there and I play with him on this guitar I've never played before. I'm like, "Man, what are we going to play?" And he's on his rig and he has his drummer, so I'm in his den. Yeah. And he goes, "Just breathe and jam, man." And then he just goes, and the room instantaneously changes, instantaneously changes. Yeah. And it's like, whoa. So you can get to that point, whether he's aware of it or not, where you on your subconscious trigger everyone else's subconscious. And it doesn't matter if they're black, doesn't matter if they're white, doesn't matter if they're wearing Nike Jordan 1s or Birkenstocks. Like they're going to get affected. And you guys do that. You guys get same thing. What is that? What do you think it is?
Thanks for saying that.
Totally.
I mean, I'm sure that there are points, obvious points, stuff like tempo and vibe and all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, maybe on a more macro sense, like
Yes.
the music that I have felt the most connection to is music that I feel like there's an invitation there to be in the moment with this piece of music. There's an invitation there to be myself. It can be, and that's something that Corey does really well. Like the minute you listen to his music or the minute you listen to the Wolf Guys play, there is an invitation there to be in that moment with them, to participate in some way. Not a specific
invitation to participate.
Yeah.
Sir.
And I feel that way about, oh gosh, I was listening this morning. There's a great, Eric Whitaker is great choral composer. There's a piece of his called Sleep, which I just think is so beautiful. And that has a similar invitation to participate. One of my favorite bands of all time, Tool. It's the same thing. There is something, again, could not be more different from Corey's vibe or the Alan Stone Band vibe or something. But there's an invitation there to just be vulnerable and to just express something or to be in that moment. And it's a subjective thing, but there are definitely, and I'm sure you've been in plenty of these, a lot of sessions or a lot of different vibes where that is not the thing.
No.
There is a barrier there, or there's like a cover charge that must be paid in some way. And I think that the music that for me has been most impactful, or I think that the music that's most effective in the ways that you're talking about, there's an invitation to participate.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
I remember like one of my first concerts was going to see Metallica,
Wow.
And talk about an invitation to participate.
There's no one bigger.
Oh, I mean, it was my first mosh pit experience. It was my first time getting beer spilled on. It was tremendous. Wow. It was wonderful. It was everything I wanted it to be, And then it's the same thing where, like, we the Alan Stone Band will go and play in Auckland, New Zealand, and like whatever it was, 4,000 or 5,000 people in this theater. The crowd drank the bar dry before the opening act.
Oh my God!
And it was just people were singing during the tunes. People were singing in between the tunes. People were singing after so it was just tremendous. And just that invitation to participate. I know that kind of sounds vague, but I feel like,
what sets up the pedestal for an invitation to participate? Is it an understanding? Here's my question. It's hard to get that invitation to be solid when you haven't played with the guys before in the band. Like, you got to have at least somewhat of a repertoire together.
I think that's true. And relationships, musical and otherwise, can take on a lot of different forms and energies, right? Like some relationships, it's immediate. You're just like, yes, I get it. As I imagine your experience the other night with Corey was, it's like, all right, I am on this magic carpet ride and here we go. I'm in. I'm in. I don't need any, but some partnerships, well, honestly, like my experience with the Alan Stone guys was this way. It took a little while, not because of anything those guys were doing, but I think it was just me kind of like getting over a lot of my own neuroses and my own sort of preconceptions. And it took a while, but because it was really earned, that sense of kind of ownership within that band and that sense of ownership of myself and my own musicality and my own voice, there was a real pride associated with it. And I think like a real profound connection with everything that I have done subsequently that I feel like is really unflappable. It's really, really strong.
You gave a fuck, right? It's like, it's really obvious when everyone cares, and it makes everything better when everyone cares. And it's the idea of like, why would you play music if you don't care? And it's just like, there's so much that happening in these centralized cities that are around industry, where there's so many opportunities to get into an act where you just don't care. And that helps no one. That does nothing.
It helps no one. It can be really, really damaging. Yeah. And again, like a real lesson that I've learned with the Alan thing, because we were, started out completely independent and then signed to ATO Records, and the Brown record was re-released through that. And then we signed to Capitol Records for Radius. And that chapter was sort of challenging. And there are some pitfalls there with a lot of the cliches that you associate with a lot of major label stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, and then back with ATO Records, and then, tours being canceled or like wires getting crossed, all this, interpersonal things, shitty business manager,
totally
throw a stick at anything you want to in terms of cliches in the business. And like, I've seen it all, And I think that what I've come to realize, and I think everyone who has had like a longer career in music realizes, is that, you're not owed anything. It's what you make of the opportunity. This is, again, it's total cliche territory. I apologize. I'm in vacation mode. I can say these things.
Not cliche.
I just realized that I wasn't owed anything. The opportunity came so suddenly and seemingly randomly, and it could be taken away just as quickly and just as randomly. With a lot of the shenanigans with the label stuff, I recognize that these were not evil people. They were not bad at their jobs. They were just, people experiencing the myriad of things we all experience that can influence, any number of things, right? So I came away with some of, some of the chapters of some of the things that could be perceived as failures or setbacks within the Al Stone universe, not jaded, which I feel like was a real gift, and just appreciating that, like, okay, like this ride is sort of like what I make of it, and what can I control,
just your own effort, really.
Yeah. Well, and intention, and pride in the work. And like, right. I have seen so many, bands get signed to huge deals with no following. I've seen people with a huge DIY following who've been openly dismissed by the industry.
Oh yeah.
I've seen songs randomly hit. Yes. I've seen songs slow burn. I've seen slam dunk songs that have all this money and all this promo put behind them that have died on the vine. I've just, so much of this crazy thing has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Right. As far as like the industry stuff goes, or the biz or whatever it is. The only thing you can really do is just really, really move with intention, and really, again, just sort of be proud of what you're doing and how you're treating the people around you.
Man. Yes.
And, my experience has been that if art is created that way, it finds an audience. It might take a little while, but it finds an audience, and critically, it finds the right audience. It's amazing. You don't need 7 million people to hear a song. You need the right person to hear the song at the right time, who really understands the energy and the vibe. And that person could potentially open all kinds of doors for you. That's, this is something I was telling myself, like releasing this single and gearing up to release a bunch more, of just like, well, why even release music now? We're in the middle of this pandemic. The industry is in disarray. People are just kind of like doubling down on what should be important to all of us, family and friends and kind of people who are near and dear to us. And
music's very important though to us,
music is important. And I realized that sharing art was important to me.
Beauty.
And, yes. Earaith was the first song that I wrote during this lockdown. It was the first time that I had someone else sing a lead vocal that I had written. And
why'd you do that?
Well, I just didn't know if I wanted to sing the song.
Yeah.
It didn't have, my voice didn't really convey the right mood, I felt. And it was also a great exercise for me Megan Slankard is a great artist and a great friend of mine, to just ask, just like, hey, can you sing this thing? Like here, so like the demo that I sent to her, like all the parts were in place, all the vocal stacks, everything. And hopefully your listeners will check out the song. There's a lot going on.
Start of this episode. Yeah.
We'll play it. And she was so gracious in she just sang the melody and the lyrics. There was no improvisation. She just sang the song. And I was so grateful for that. And it was so wonderful to just hear, what happened was a transformation where like the song was written from a really kind of confused, lonely space. And that pushed through Megan's voice, all of a sudden became like a real sort of celebration of like possibility and sort of like next chapters. And there was an optimism now to the song that when I wrote it wasn't there. And that inspired me to then reach out to so Matt Musty, the drummer from Train, and he was with Grace Potter as well. I don't think he even said yes to playing on the song. I just sent him the tune and just like, hey man, does this song stink? And then he sent back like a bunch of treatments. And I was like, all right, this is amazing. And then Swati played the piano. I mean, if you listen to the song and just listen to the piano that Swati plays, it is stunningly beautiful. Like to the point that I just want to release just a solo piano version of this song.
Come on, right?
It was just absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. And again, Swati is a guy who's very much known as a funk kind of soul virtuoso, the talk box, like all this kind of stuff. But he is such a deep musician and so respectful of art. And then Tyler Carroll, Alan Stone bass player. He is just the consummate professional. Any listener who wants to hire a bass player for a thing, hire Tyler Carroll.
Oh wow! Okay, nice.
He is so musical and so versatile and so professional.
I'm gonna have to take 10% of Tyler's. I'm gonna have to be his agent though for this.
Hey, absolutely. You know, as an artist, you appreciate that. Like if someone sends you something and it requires like a lot of massaging, that can be fine. But it can also just be like, oh boy, I'm gonna have to put some hours into this. With Tyler, you never have to. You don't change anything. You don't nudge a single. It is just wonderful the way it is. And then like very last minute, hit up Jeff Coffin from Dave Matthews Band. And he played like all that horn stuff and woodwind stuff there in the tune.
Oh, come on, man!
And that was like an 11th hour thing. Because I've known Jeff for a while. You know, we played the Alan Stone Band opened 10 or 12 shows for Dave Matthews Band like back in 2012. You know, and
yeah.
You know, we got off the bus at the Gorge Amphitheater, which is this huge venue in Washington.
Oh, I know the Gorge. Yeah.
No. So as a big jam guy too, like the Gorge has a lot of reverence in that world.
It's the one.
And it is a beautiful, beautiful place to play. And Jeff was there to greet us as we were getting off the bus. Again, we were as green as grass, you know, and he was just as green as some fine weed, my friend. And he was there, you know, with just like this camera around his neck and just, hey, I'm Jeff, how's it going? Shaking hands, just so just friendly and just like free with his wisdom and just positive energy. And you know, he's a dude, you know, he's
everyone is
player. Yeah. And he's an ambassador for so many great things. And again, he never actually said yes in typical Jeff Coffin way. I just sent him, you know, because, you know, I have a tendency to be like maybe overly polite and just like, oh, you know, if you'd be so kind, maybe you would consider potentially playing a little bit, but only here. I don't want to take up, you know, sort of deeply ingrained Britishy sort of nonsense, right? Mm-hmm. But with Jeff, again, he's another guy. Never actually said yes. He just sent back in this beautiful Jeff Coffin way, just like a series of videos of the Pro Tools session, just talking. Oh, here's the thing, and you could maybe mix it like this, and you could do this, and you could do just so much joy. And then just sent me like a bunch of just so many ideas. And
that's the thing when you reach out to others who have valid egos for a project. It enhances the lifeblood of whatever it is you're trying to create, right? Yeah. And man, you're preaching that in a very heavy, real way, which is like reaching out to others who are on your level and above. Like that is the thing.
It's so important. It's so much fun, you know, even if you're, because I feel like also some people, myself included, who are coming from a situation where they're playing a more supporting role, say, in maybe something that's successful. Right. There can be a tendency to overcorrect, I feel, and like come out, oh, is that a wasp? Oh, no, it's great. So I'm surrounded by all kinds of geckos all over the place. It's great. It's going to be a great video component to the podcast. But, you know, there can be a tendency to overcorrect and just be like, all right, this needs to be mine. I need to do everything, you know? And I fell into that trap. So one of my sort of rules for doing this now is that I have to include people in this thing. I can write the tune, I can produce it, I can mix it, I can do all this stuff, but like, I'm not going to play bass. I'm sure as hell not going to play drums. Right. I'm not going to play keys. I'm not, or just, you know, talented people like yourself. I'm going to ask you to do something, you know,
I'd love to.
Like, and, you know, to just, and to not give, you know, no rules. Just like listen to this thing and do a thing that feels really good. And that will be authentic to what the song is meant to be in this moment. And that was another reason why I chose to put out Earache Now, because it's a time capsule, and it's imperfect in all the ways that I feel are so great. You know, it's my first attempt at like really going deep, like mixing and really going deep there. And that was such a nourishing kind of learning curve and really, really cool. And I've learned so much. It was a great lesson in terms of sort of relinquishing a little bit of control to let these other musicians I gave no one any direction.
That's great though.
The only direction I gave was to Megan, just asking her to just sing the thing the way that I'd written it.
Deliver it down the middle. Yeah.
And but she did that with her own spin on it, with
You
her own
can't help.
character.
You can't help, but like that's what I'm always like thinking about lately. Like if you're trying to do something outside the box, and but if you want something to be like useful to a lot of people, like it's got to be somewhat in the box, like of our general understanding. There's this good Nietzsche quote where it's like the more talented or intelligent individual, no, the deeper thinkers are more fearful of being understood than misunderstood. So it's like these, like if the more talented you are at something, like you'd rather go outside the box and no one get it. But it's like, you really should try to like shoot things down the middle. And like that track is very well executed. It's very well thought out. And I think this is just for everyone listening, where it's like, shoot down the middle, because there's innately going to be residue of your personality and skill on anything you do. It's like, you don't have to try.
I think so. And I think it also, right. No, you're exactly right. And it comes back to, I think, like authenticity as well.
Yes.
Like, when Jacob Collier sits down to write music, what naturally comes out of him is 150 simultaneous vocal tracks and all of this kind of maximalist thing that is beautiful and really inspiring because it's authentic to him. It makes sense. As much as I would like to be, like this really sort of cool guy, and as many different projects as I've done over the years, or sessions I've been part of, or whatever it is, when I sit down to write music, what just comes out of me, like for example, I really wish that what came out of me naturally was just like great death metal. Oh, that would make me so happy.
Isn't it interesting? Like that's what people don't get. They don't get if you can, like, if you're good at music, like if you play music, right? And they don't get that you don't really have the ability to be a Swiss Army knife in multiple masters. Like what comes out of you is kind of what comes out. Like when I play a guitar, people always ask me how I get a twangy sound, like whatever guitar it is. And it's like, well, that's just kind of how my hands sound, man. Like
bone tone, baby. Yeah. Tone. No, which is a great porno. Yeah. No, but it's true. It's just like, it comes from you. Right. And it's the same thing, with like, for me, with writing a tune, like when I sit down to write a song, what tends to come out is just sort of the Bono thing, 3 chords and the truth, So
is that the Bono thing? Wow.
Or I'm sure he got it from someone else,
Yeah.
And we all probably got it from Paul McCartney, So yeah, like I think that is just the music that comes out of me when I sit down to write. Even when I was in the height of like, the instrumental guitar stuff and all that, and really digging deep into, a lot of fusion and a lot of, progressive metal and instrument, fucking Yngwie Malmsteen and all these guys, When I would sit down to write music, it would still be just sort of GCD and my feelings, you know what I mean? And so, it's really great now to kind of, for those of us who have like a lot of tools in the tool bag, it's really great, over the years to have like cultivated that sort of maturity or that reverence to be able to pick the right one for the right moment, at least in my view, sort of the right moment, and to build around that. Cause it is true. Like with Erith in particular, it's like, it's a 1-6-4-5 with a few little curveballs here and there, but it is, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of sort of like Easter eggy, sort of like nod and wink stuff for the musicians.
Sure.
But it is also just a gentle, wintry, ethereal, sort of contemplative, like nostalgic thing.
I'm perplexed by simplicity. I'm perplexed by how we use, since how does Pasha Bell get away? How does Old Crow Medicine Show get away with the same chords Pasha Bell used? How does Adam Levine get away with the same chords that Beethoven used? Like, you're talking about all of this change in how we communicate and how we live our lives, and in even in our architecture as our lifespans, like everything's changing. But music, we use the same chords still? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? We use the same 12 keys? Like, that's a little interesting, is it not? It's crazy, and it's only grown. It's like, what's that about? Yeah, it's wild.
I'm so grateful, especially during these times, to have something through which I can kind of manifest just all of this, I can't imagine a life where I wouldn't really create and share music. That was another kind of turning point, because I think for all of us, it doesn't matter like what rung of the ladder you're sort of on, the proverbial ladder you're on. This time right now, this year of 2020, this forced kind of pause that we're all experiencing, I think you'd be a sociopath if you didn't kind of step back and go, okay, like what does this mean for us moving forward? What does this mean for career? What does this mean for my personal, what does this all mean? And I think that, my big takeaway, again, full on cliche mode here, but I think my big takeaway was, again, like not feeling like I'm owed anything from this business, which is, look, I'm going to just share these singles and share music forever. It doesn't matter what the Alan Stone thing is. It doesn't matter how I'm making money. It doesn't matter whatever trials and tribulations and turmoil there is in the world. I'm just going to create and share this music forever and just see, and that will be the guiding light. That will illuminate whatever path I need to kind of meander down in the future. And again, it doesn't sound like super profound on the surface, but when I had that kind of epiphany of just like, it's not, I'm not owed a career by this music. I just need this expression and this something that plants me and firmly contextualizes me in like really turbulent times. I need that. And that's the energy that I'm going to honor. And when I really relaxed into that, there was just this all-encompassing just sort of sense of peace and calm and a weight lifted of just like, okay, I know wow. What it is that I want to do. And I'm so grateful for that. Had we not had this forced pause and had it just, the tour was canceled halfway through the first tour of the album cycle for Building Balance. So we were gearing up to 3 years of just crazy full tilt boogie, which is great. But, it would have been a couple, 3 years again, further away from this evolution that, I'm kind of experiencing now and that we're all experiencing in our own ways. It would have been a couple, 3 years removed from writing this music and sharing this music, or even feeling like I want to do that. It would have been a couple, 3 years removed from actually feeling like I have a strong sense of self and identity separate from a thing that's already successful. There's so much, that is sort of the result of this tension.
Of course.
That I'm very grateful to be able to appreciate. I mean, here I am sat in this beautiful place that I'm very fortunate to be able to kind of wrap my head around, and I think also one of the reasons why I'm flattered that you asked me to do the show is that I feel like this is a gift that this podcast offers to your listeners, is an opportunity to ask these questions, about themselves and going, okay, well, how am I navigating through all this? What about my thing that I thought really mattered? Right. Does it really matter that much?
Ooh, now that's a dark one. Everyone in the industry felt that this year. Everyone who plays music felt that they did not matter because ultimately it's going to go on without you. Right. Yeah. And you face that monolith of truth where it's like, that really is real. Like that's very, very real. But the thing is, I read this Carl Sagan quote that just kills me, where it's like, to live in the hearts of the ones you leave behind is to live forever. To live in the hearts that you leave behind is to live forever. So it's like, whoa. So it's really like, if you can just make people feel in this time, if you can find a way to connect people, make them feel in your time here, then you've done your job. And it's like, doesn't matter if it goes on without you because you've done your job. And it's like, that really is.
Yeah, right. I think that's absolutely true. And I think for me, to have this happen at the stage of my life or the stage of my career that I'm in is I mean, again, it sounds so shitty to say stuff like fortunate during these times, but I'm grateful to have had experienced like really, a lot as far as career goes, and and as far as just like personal stuff, like when you're, I've been that person who has, had relationships end because I've just been on the road too much and I've been like inattentive. I've been a shitty partner,
Oh man, me too.
I've been you know, I've been part of some great business deals. I've been part of some awful business deals. I've been part, you know, like I've experienced that crazy roller coaster of like a band making it or whatever, you know, and that cliche of like, oh, well, this is just what my life is. This is great. I'm just going to be fucking hitting inside the park home runs for the rest of my life. All the gummy bears I can eat. This is great, you know? And then to have that kind of slow down.
Yeah.
And to have there be lulls and to have there be, you know, miscommunications or like, you know, promises that weren't kept or like, where'd that money go? You know, all the cliches. I've arrived now at a place, especially during this time. I mean, here I am with my parents, you know, at the family spot, just being like, you know, how is my family? How are my people? Are they healthy? Are they well? How can I support them? Can I be with them?
Right.
You know, who, and even just musically, like who's really on my team? Who was on my team superficially because I was part of something that was successful when it was really moving around.
Probably too many people.
Yeah, well, you know, and who are the people who genuinely believe in me as a creative entity and as a person, and as a contributor to the continuum? Who are those people? And I know that the greatest emphasis must be placed on finding those people and respecting and loving those people. And then everything else can be built around that. If this had happened earlier on in my career, I would probably be, you know, I would certainly be a lot more resentful, and I'd certainly be like, oh, well, God damn it, I need this sort of validation, or this was supposed to make it on this playlist, or we were supposed to do this, and it's all for shit. And what does it all mean? Whereas now I'm a lot more, well, I'm certainly a lot more patient than I was, but I think I really appreciate having been a person who has made a lot of good decisions, but also made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of the mistakes that, again, are cliches. I really appreciate how fortunate I am to be able to be like, okay, where are my people? Are they safe? You know, are they well? Let me be with them, you know? And the same thing, you know, even with sharing music is like, let me do this and let me honor people who are in my corner who really believe in me. Let me create this music for them, and let me find an audience who kind of intuitively taps into that energy. You know, I remember even chatting with some people, like publicists and stuff like that, before releasing Earaith, and being like, okay, well, what kind of camp? And just, you know, again, sort of bizarrely, just being like, you know what, I not for this song. Yeah. Not right now. Right now. This song needs to just be about these gestures that we're talking about. It needs to just nudge the boat out. It needs to just be a gentle invitation into this being like something that I do. And let me go be with my family. Let me go be with my people, you know, and so here I am, you know.
Man, it's the concept of doing what's meaningful over doing what's expedient.
Yeah, you know, I think, oh gosh, I'm going to you know, I shouldn't have even brought this up because I'm going to butcher the quote, but, so badly that I'm not even trying. So I'm going to like very, very horribly paraphrase it. But basically it's like, you know, you have a direction, and that is far more important than, like, as you say, like stuff happening quickly. Not even a great paraphrase of a great quote, but, and that's something that, you know, I've realized now that there's been this kind of forced pause, you know, and the Alan Stone thing is dormant, and kind of a lot of things in our industry are dormant. And I'm putting out this music, and I'm around people who love me, and I'm so fortunate to be in this beautiful place and having a great conversation with a friend and a musician I really admire.
Likewise.
It really is a beautiful time to just kind of reflect. And you know, honestly, I can't, to reflect back and, you know, all the times I've been so critical of myself, so critical of my career, and just like, oh God, like this, why isn't this happening? Or this is happening now, but it's not happening the way I thought it was.
Yeah,
or like,
you're right.
This person said this and this person.
So silly.
But, you know, but I look back on my career or my life, or however you want to think about it. And I realized that the direction, the intention has been actually really steady and consistent. You know, it's meandered along the way, as any life or career does, but there has been a real intensity and a real again, direction that has been steadfast. That when you're in the thick of things, when you're in the mosh pit, when you're just trying to like not catch your 7,000th cold on tour.
Oh yeah, vitamin C and LaCroix.
Yeah, you just, you know, you don't focus on this stuff. You're in survival mode. And so, you know, but I realize now that even in all my regrettable, like ill-fitting pants phases and like tank top phases and like whatever fucking bullshit phases. It actually, I was actually kind of like on the right path the whole time.
That's
and
part of the simulation, I think, is like the idea where we have our ego in the present view of the scenes that are happening before our eyes. And once the highlight reel plays back in our mind, we start to see that there's a real disconnect there. And you're never really as aware of the peace and harmony and the flux of change and the chaos and order, really, that's happening in everything that you're doing. And you're only really caught up in like maybe what's wrong and what you don't presently have and who you are yet to be. But really, once you look back, you're like, oh, wait, no, that led to this and that led to that. And now I'm here and I'm thinking these things and I'm at this level. And it makes you a better person. And it's like, how do you get aware of those things while it's all happening when it's fully turbulent and interactive in the present moment? That's what the level I think you're talking about that you're trying to get on.
Yeah, well, and along those exact lines, it's that advice that you would give anyone of just enjoy the moment and
be here now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And sometimes for some people, when you hear something like that, you're just like, oh, well, this is just what people say. Well,
it is because it's a cliche and it's real.
No, but it is real, and I think that what I probably would have been unreceptive to hearing at the time, but that I would absolutely tell someone now is that. The only way, like this is not supposed to make sense right now. If you're so fortunate as to be caught up in the crazy whirlwind of like a band sort of breaking through or whatever it is, or, a lot of the stuff that you're experiencing now, all of these things, if you're so fortunate to get those kind of cuts at the plate, it's not supposed to make sense. In fact, it should feel stupid. It should feel like entirely unsustainable and like none of it's real. Like it should feel that way.
That's good to hear, man. That's great to hear.
No. I mean, it's not, it shouldn't make sense. If it makes sense, you're either a sociopath or you're an asshole, or it's or like you're hallucinating. I have no idea. It's not really supposed to make sense. But it contextualizes later on when you have a moment to breathe and you're just like, oh Christ, like I have been a completely different human being, like maybe 6 or 7 times over the past 10 years. It's crazy,
I know it's a wild thing to observe the different identity.
And it's like, it's wonderful. It's that if there was anything that I would impart to someone, maybe listening to this who's early on in their career, doesn't know what the hell's going on, or they're starting to maybe get on the uptick of something. It's just like, it's supposed to feel dumb.
Yeah, man.
It's really meant to feel stupid.
Yeah.
And it will all kind of make sense later on. And in the meantime, just be kind to people and just be overwhelmed, be intimidated, but just keep hacking through the woods, And you kind of, and it makes sense. It really does. And I feel fortunate to have kind of survived, I guess, long enough now to be at a place where I'm like, okay, like, I know, like I'm sort of on the righteous path for me. I'm kind of hucking things down what I perceive the heart of the plate to be, to use a completely different analogy.
There we go.
Metaphor, whatever the hell it is. And as I'm starting to release this music and as I'm starting this sort of new chapter of my life and my career, as we all are, I'm confident that it's being informed by the right stuff, and that's, and again, something I'm really grateful. Even if the Alan thing were to end today, it has given me so much, not least of which is that kind of realization that I can trust myself. As an artist and as a person. Like that's a big deal, And then when you have something like that, it's not about the number of social media followers you have or the amount of people who bought the vinyl or the amount of people who bought a t-shirt or all the stuff that we very rightly concern ourselves with. Those things are important, but it's not really about that. It's what is actually, fueling the fire. And again, like focusing on like what makes you proud, what makes you feel really fulfilled as a person and as an artist,
Man, I read this quote where it's like, it's not about what work you do, but it's in this life and what you learn, but it's how you do it. Because if you really look at it, like if you attain a goal while being a person that you're not sustainably being, then that feedback cycle won't continue for very long.
Yes.
And it's like, so you might as well get your shit straight, your perception right, and your vibes right on your own inner world and start manifesting success within behaviors that come from that guy or woman or whatever.
Mhm.
And that'll sustain. Like that's where the macro can start to be a luxury. And that's where the feast, I feel, can come in. And that's what you're talking about, man. That's so beautiful that you're arriving to that through your own speculation and experiences.
Yeah. It's
It's beautiful.
it's a really kind of funny place to have arrived upon after all this time.
It always is. What a long, strange trip it's been, right? It's like
What a long-
truly.
What a long, strange trip it's been. Yeah. But so what are you excited about right now as we're kind of, on the cusp of like a new year?
I'm not excited about the new year. I don't know if I'm looking at this as a new year. I haven't really thought about it. I have a note to sit down and think about what I want to do for next year and get everything ready. But, right now, man, I am very much just so happy to be out playing again. We're playing down here in Nashville, getting back on stage about twice a week. And we're not doing any advertised shows. We're just simply playing down at Robert's Western World again.
Yeah.
And that's really fun. That's given me a thing. So like I played there when I was like 16 to like 20 years old. So I had about 4 or 5 years there where I was playing all the time. And now I've had like 5 years of experience of traveling the world, meeting different people and cultures that I can now take back to that platform and kind of revisit that old identity and that old energy and that old value center.
Well, that's cool because I remember we, several years would have been, obviously during the time you're talking about, but we had done a thing at the Ryman, and then I went over to Roberts when you were probably 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
And saw you play with that band,
Yeah, the Don Kelly band.
And just be like, okay, well, this guy's ridiculous. This is great. And I kind of hung out there for like an hour and a half,
Whoa, that's the thing, man. Yeah, I'm trying to get back on that wavelength. I feel like I might have lost that wavelength by getting out into the world for about 5 years. I didn't lose it completely, but I was just made aware of different possibilities and different avenues that you can manifest in this business. Mm-hmm. And that really was my calling, is to just be whatever Roberts is me playing on stage, and I hone in on an energy in a moment that brings something out of me that makes people sit there for 4 hours and not move. And I don't get what that is. And I'm trying to kind of understand what that is. And I'm really just trying to respect whatever muse that is every day right now.
Yeah.
I haven't been posting as much. I haven't been thinking about content. I've just really been trying to get back to like, what's my real value center? What's going to work 5 years, 10 years down the road for me? It's like, so really, man, just playing out again is something I've been excited about. We're going to do a record in February. I'm excited about that. And the podcast has been full of discovery. Ironically, it's called The Lost Highway, but I learn more and more each time I do another episode. So those are the vibes.
Yeah, no, I really like the show a lot. Like I remember even, I think it was even episode 1, the interview you did with Clay Cook.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
I think, I love a lot of things about your show, but one of them is just that, this is clearly an outlet that you are genuinely engaged and passionate about and excited about. And I think one of the reasons why I'm not doing my show at the moment, look, there are many episodes and it was definitely a thing, but one of the reasons why I'm not doing my show now is I realized that I didn't actually have that same level of engagement and passion behind the show. I kind of, like I said earlier on in our conversation, I was kind of using it as an excuse to not do the personal work required to actually dig deep into the music that I wanted to create. Wow. It was a little bit of a distraction for me as opposed to like a really nourishing supplement to the thing, which I feel like is what you're doing. So I feel like your inner compass is really nicely aligned. And I think, it's funny too, like you're going back and playing shows at Roberts is exactly what we're talking about, just in terms of during these surreal times, where are our people? And falling back on these things that provide us like a sense of identity, a sense of security. And, for you, playing at Roberts, these were like very important formative years, and not just your development as a musician, but your development as a person. And to me, I think it makes perfect sense to re-explore that world and go, okay, well now as like a grown ass man with like a career and this cool following and all this stuff happening, what does like where I came from, what does that mean to be now? And I think that it's as you say, it's a powerful energy. And so I think it's great too that you're that you're going down there and you're playing. And also, and just like as you say, like purely on a practical level, engaging with the band, continuing to build the chemistry with the musicians. You know, I feel like with a lot of musicians, there's a disenfranchisement of just like a disconnection from audiences and crowds and just like the human thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's encouraging as long as the shows are safe, you know, I think it's great to kind of
Roberts
go out.
has been very good. They've been very politically correct about it. And it's like, it gives me a lot of faith in humanity, honestly, to go back there again. Because if you're only listening to certain sides of algorithmically curated pieces of content that are driven by the media, you might start to think that you're part of the problem, and you are. Like, you obviously are. You know, if you're playing out shows, you're not on the safe side of things. But it's very interesting to see how, let's not forget that COVID's not as old as music. Like, let's not forget that music is a archaic human interaction, and music survived terrible things like throughout all kinds of events of humanity. And it's cool to see archetypes, cliches, whatever you want to call them, that are involved with humanity that out-survive bad plagues and out-survive things that are really crushing to the ego and our health. And it's like, it's wild to see. And I don't want to speak out of place or offend anybody, but it's nice to be able to go and see people who want to see music and give that to them. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, people miss, you know, it's a very kind of profoundly human thing to want to participate and to want to be moved and to want to congregate and share and all of these things. And so like this time has been very sort of surreptitiously damaging for a lot of people, you know, even people who are so fortunate as to not have their livelihoods decimated or to not have lost loved ones or to not be filled with kind of all manner of existential kind of like, at least like very sort of visceral existential angst, you know, there is, as I say, this surreptitious thing, this sort of like drip torture of just uncertainty, separation. Yeah. And so, I agree. I mean, personally, I've enjoyed a break from the road just for an opportunity to heal sort of mind and body.
Me too.
But I really look forward to that opportunity to be back on stage again, as we all do.
Dude, man, there's something really nice about putting an amp in the back of your Toyota Corolla, driving 20 minutes and then coming home that night and playing. It's just like a way different thing. And it's wild too for my ego to have 100,000 people subscribe to what I do, and then on a Sunday go play to 7.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's actually really good, because I challenge a lot of people with that followership to go and try to channel a real place in themselves that's not driven by statistics when there's 7 people in a room. And they've already gained 100,000 people in their fan base. It's like, that's a great challenge I wasn't thought I was going to have to face this year. And it's very nice to be able to do that, because it makes you realize that it is in you, my friend. Like, it's really inside of you. And if you really force yourself to get there, you hold your breath under that water long enough, it comes. And it's wild. You're channeling into something that's not within your physical being, that I don't even know what it is, but I'm feeling it more and more these days around me when I'm holding a guitar in my hands, and it's wild.
Yeah. No, I think it's so important. I think it's commendable. You know, we all fall into complacency, especially if you're fortunate to have, you know, some success or be part of something that has worked or is working. As I say, you know, all the gummy bears you can eat, you know, it's pretty cool, you know, or, you know, to have, as you say, like, a platform with a couple 100,000 people, you know, you put something out and you get immediate feedback. You put out a record, people listen. You put out a song, people dig it.
Yep.
And, you know, so certainly within that, you can lose the forest for the trees a little bit, just in terms of, okay, but how else can I push? Which is why it's great. You know, you have this show and you have other things you're doing, but, you know, how can I push myself? How can I continue to grow, as opposed to just get this validation or these continual kind of dopamine hits from this thing, you know? Right. And certainly within the Alan Stone thing, we've definitely gone through many chapters of complacency, and, you know, what a tremendous luxury but it's been the growth of like what it takes to sit down and get yourself out of that kind of rut is really powerful. And
it's unfortunate that I wish I was a strong enough person to be able to put myself through it just naturally, but I don't know if it works that way. Like, I think like hedonic adaptation is what it's called. I'm a dumbass, so I don't know, but it's like, we can't help on like a physical and like chemical level to adapt to sensory experiences. Otherwise, everything would be so startling to us. We wouldn't be able to operate and maneuver through society in a way that's logistically sound. Like a 1-year-old, like you just simply all the sights, the sounds, the explorations, the kaleidoscope of reality, and all the parameters in between. It would be too much to take in. So our brain can't help but get desensitized, and maybe we start to see the fact that we get blind to the fact that we actually need to be striving and growing at all moments in time. If you're not doing that, you're really shrinking. And so I guess I'm realizing now that I think there's an essence in playing downtown for 4 hours at a time that makes me not shrink, but it makes me grow. And it's cool. It's a forcing of that, staying on that treadmill. It's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. And again, it's commendable that you're doing it. I think that it's such a human thing to sort of like want to be comfortable and to feel safe and to feel protected. And, I think maybe it's on us to kind of realize that there are many ways to feel that way. You can be surrounded by family. You can be surrounded by your people who care about you, and that can inspire you to create and to push yourself. One of the great things about this time too, and I may have to sign off here fairly soon. So we've been having a nice long chat, and this is great.
I love this.
There are some afternoon cocktails in my future.
Ooh, yes, sir. Well, let's wrap it. That's fine.
We could we can definitely chat for a few more minutes. And again, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
And we will do it again when you're back in town. We got
man, absolutely. What I'm excited about for myself and for you and for people who are inclined to want to push and kind of dig a little bit deeper is this is fertile ground for that. There is, as we've been talking about, there is so much turbulence. There is so much unknown. There's so much upheaval. And, there is that tendency to want to shrink. There's a difference between falling back on our people for safety and for context and for being re-energized. And there's a difference between that and completely withdrawing into that and to become desensitized and to shut off that empathy, to shut off that drip because it's painful and because it's inconvenient. There's a huge difference between being around your people and that. And I think for people who are inclined to want to push and want to learn, this is, like I said, this is fertile ground. We can really look at ourselves and others really profoundly and go, how? It's not about having answers. It's just a willingness to kind of engage. I think that's the big thing right now. It's just a willingness to engage, whether it's like the political dissonance, whether it's the social unrest, whether it's the industry, whether it's relationships. I mean, these are huge issues that do not have simple answers, but all of them are happening in real time. And, you can shrink or you can choose to kind of meet the things on the front line and be wholly imperfect. And again, that I really learned that lesson from the Alan Stone thing, that you don't have to be good. You don't have to know what you're doing at all, but you have to, but you have to be willing to kind of show up and crank it, and get in the van and go to the next place and do the same thing. It's
man.
Just on the human level, like you have to be prepared to ask questions. Yes. You have to be prepared to chat with people and engage people who don't think in the same way that you think. You have to, you should share art. Mm-hmm. You should grow. You should push yourself. You should play to 7 people in a weird socially distanced show and grapple with what that means. Yeah. And, maybe that provides perspective and clarity on another thing that you're doing. There is so much opportunity to just be less of a douchebag right now, and I think that is also, that's a very scary place to be, right? It's a very scary place to be, to be willing to kind of really turn the microscope inward and figure out what's going on.
You have to. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely you do. Absolutely you do. And I know personally, I'm very much in that place right now where I'm really I'm turning the stone over, no pun intended, in all kinds of different ways and sort of figuring out, where, like I've said many times during our conversation, where am I at right now? What does it mean in this moment? And where do I want to go? not like where am I being led by this sort of like nebulous, sort of amorphous thing? Like
you are not a victim, right?
Yeah, like where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And certainly sharing songs like Earwraith is very important for me in actualizing all that and figuring out what the hell it means. Having conversations like ours today is nourishing and like really wonderful. Selfishly for me, maybe I'm going to bore your audience to tears. I don't give a shit about me.
They were very excited to hear you're coming on here. They really were.
Oh well, no. As I say, it's my pleasure. And.
Man, I'm going to put the link to this, to the song and also just to all the socials. Obviously, it's on every platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all the places, right? So
yeah.
We'll absolutely get that out there in the world. And I just thank you so much for this time. This was so fun, man. This really was. I needed this. We're just on that level of thinking and kind of that similar neuroticism. And it's good to reveal that to the world and show people that they're not alone in their thoughts, So this was a beautiful time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Anytime you want to chat, either on the record or off the record, I'm always down.
I can smell that Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville mix through the Zoom meeting, so I'm excited for you.
It's almost time. Yeah.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you later, Trevor.
Sweet, man. Yeah, thank you.
All right, dude. Be safe. Happy New Year's too.
Yeah, no, thanks, dude. No, and this was a lot of fun. I'm very flattered you wanted to have me on. I appreciate it.
Right on, man. My pleasure. All right,
cool, dude. Well, yeah. Well, be safe, and I will. Let's touch base in the new year and just kind of figure out where we're all at, or where we're both at, and we'll whatever. We'll hang. We'll make some music. We'll drink some coffee. It'll all be good.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Right on. All right, okay, I'll talk to you later.
All right, take it easy, dude.
Positivity wins. Voice cracking at the age of 25, soon to be 26. I don't know how much that wins, but it just happened. I'm being transparent. I'm being honest, and that's really, I think, what matters in this life. Thank you guys so much for listening to the official podcast of Cosmic Country, the Lost Highway podcast. We are presently not brought to you by anybody. Who are we listening to? Aubrey Ramsey, Wildwood Flower, one of my favorite folk artists. We are listening to Jerry Garcia with Grateful Dead on some Bertha on the intro of this podcast, and they were listening to Trevor Larkin's brand new single. Go download it everywhere. I don't want to botch the pronunciation of it, so just type in Trevor Larkin music on all platforms. You guys will dig it. If you want to get into some Cosmic Country, we have it on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all of the places. Support us on Patreon. Thank you we just hit 51 patrons, which is very much so astounding. We have Cosmic Country merchandise that we just dropped for the winter. We have a new release every month this year. Y'all make sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts and to follow it on Spotify. Thank you. One more important thing before you sign off. What is it that you are going to do in 2021, such as a personal act of ownership to make your life better? What is it that you're going to do? Let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram or Patreon. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you're up to. In the meantime, stay patient, stay persistent, stay positive, stay cosmic.